Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will continue our reading the story about a man who has a crazy sister-in-law that wanted to ruin his marriage, try to steal from them, and even taking their child's name. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly recommend watching it on our channel first to fully understand the story and its progression. Let's get started. At some point while all this was happening, my wife and I spent 4 years trying to get pregnant before the wrong side of 35. We are currently 33 respectively now and are blessed with a wonderful infant son. My wife and I had nearly given up trying to conceive when it suddenly happened, and we were ecstatic. After we found out we were having a boy, we started looking into names. I ended up suggesting the name of my Scottish grandfather, and my wife loved it, so that's the name we settled on. But we made the mistake of posting about it on social media. Well, no surprise to the stereotype in this mess, my sister-in-law was pregnant too and was months further along than my wife and also having a boy. She decided to claim my grandfather's name for her own son, and not just the first name but the middle name too. We called her pissed over what she was doing, and she smugly told us there's nothing we can do about it, which she was sort of right. There was nothing we could do about it legally, and it's still not a crime to steal planned baby names. We realized that drama was exactly what my sister-in-law wanted, and she thought that by taking the name for herself, we'd not be able to use it. I laughed and told her that while what she did was dirty and underhanded, we would keep our chosen name and she could just deal with it. Whether she decides to go through with copying us or not, well, my sister-in-law's baby daddy called me and said I was an unreasonable expletive for still wanting to use the name after sister-in-law claimed it. I said she claimed nothing, and since we couldn't own the name, then neither could they. Before he ended the call, he threatened me by saying I'd be sorry if we didn't change the name. Then he hung up before I could respond. Months later, sister-in-law has a healthy baby boy and names him my grandfather's name. We did not show up for the birth, both because of the pandemic and because we simply didn't care to be there. Sister-in-law called us wanting congratulations, but we told her we simply didn't care and that if she was still insisting that we changed our baby's name, then she'd be in for some big disappointment because we were not. Sister-in-law demanded I put my wife on the phone, but it was already on speaker, and my wife spoke up and said she agrees with me entirely. We weren't changing the name. Sister-in-law hung up on us, but soon started sending emails with text walls of names, even suggesting similar ones. I responded back that the name was from my grandfather, and that's why we were not changing it. She shut up, and we didn't hear from her again till after our own son was born 2 months later. We were blessed with our son. He came out perfect, and we named him just as we'd intended. Well, no surprise, my sister-in-law called us a few days after the birth to scream in our ears that we'd copied her son's name. I pointed out she was the real copycat since she had no familial ties to the name, and we did, and anyone who looks at our family trees could see that. Then my wife spoke and said after the attempted theft of her grandmother's jewelry, she no longer considered sister-in-law her sister and would have nothing to do with her nephew either. For months, we were bombarded with messages and emails from my wife's side of the family. Half were on our side after finding out the whole story, the other half were not. Sister-in-law's baby daddy, true to his word, showed up at my door to make me sorry. I'm not sure what his plan was, but I pretty much towered over him. I'm 6'1" and well built from regular exercise and 3 trips to the gym a week. He, on the other hand, was very skinny and about 5'6" with a baby face that was badly hidden by a slim beard. I told him my house has cameras and to get off my property and never come back. He just yelled a few obscenities at me and drove off in his beat-up old car. Sister-in-law and mother-in-law called us from a different number to yell at me for making sister-in-law's baby daddy feel emasculated. I didn't even threaten the man, I just told him to leave and not come back. And if he didn't want to feel emasculated, then he shouldn't have come knocking. Then they tried to bring up the issue of the baby's name again and demanded we change our son's name because he's so young, so there's still plenty of time to do it. We held our ground and told them that they were bonkers to still think they were in the right after they copied our choice of name just to try and get one over on us. I said sister-in-law didn't even name her son out of love but out of spite just to try and stick it to my wife for no good reason. Then my wife called them both out on the way she was treated growing up, how entitled sister-in-law and mother-in-law have always been, and how she was glad to leave them far behind. She wants nothing from them, and they won't have anything from us. That left sister-in-law sobbing, and mother-in-law called me a royal bastard before hanging up the phone. That was no contact again for a little while until sister-in-law called us again sometime later to bitterly tell us we'd won. She and her baby daddy got into a huge fight and he left. He was apparently very sore that sister-in-law didn't let him even give their son a middle name from his family, and he said he was sick of the BS and wanted his son named after him and not some guy he wasn't even related to. Sister-in-law finally caved, and they got the boy's birth certificate reissued with a completely new name, which cost sister-in-law around $500 or so. She claimed sister-in-law then demanded we at least compensate her for the name change plus another $100 for the emotional damage, as now she's going to have to get used to calling her son by a different name. We laughed and said this would have never happened if she hadn't stolen our baby name to begin with, and we didn't owe her anything. Since then, we've been no contact with sister-in-law and mother-in-law, but my father-in-law, who's a very nice man and divorced from mother-in-law for obvious reasons, would come by often and loves his grandson. From what he and other relatives told us, the situation between sister-in-law and her baby daddy was pretty tumultuous, but we don't care. Not our monkeys, not our circus. Throughout all of this, my wife's other relatives that sided with sister-in-law put us through so much stress, especially mother-in-law and sister-in-law's cousin. Mother-in-law called and texted us repeatedly from a variety of different numbers, demanding we change our son's name both before and after he was born. We never once even humored her, and the cousin harassed us online multiple times. I ended up pointing out the time sister-in-law and her cousin had cornered me and tried to proposition me, and then the cousin blocked me on Facebook when more people started questioning us both about it since mother-in-law had kept the situation on heavy damage control back then. Several false rumors were spread about us, and my wife's family ended up divided and are still divided now because mother-in-law, sister-in-law, sister-in-law's cousin, and a few other family members close to them were fully on their side. They believed that it didn't matter where sister-in-law got her baby's name, said the name was hers now and we needed to let it go. I fired back that there was nothing to let go of. Sister-in-law copied the name we had and we still used it because it was my grandfather's name. We weren't asking sister-in-law to change her kid's name, we just weren't going to change our son's name because she copied it. And since we weren't going to associate with them anymore, the two kids would be complete strangers to each other anyway. The false rumors spread about me and my wife were pretty bad for me personally. Sister-in-law tried to claim I was secretly only into younger women and I'd leave my wife as soon as she had 40, and she also tried to say that my son isn't really mine and claimed my wife had an affair because I wasn't getting her pregnant. I never asked her to do it because I never believed them, but my wife got a DNA test just to prove I am my father's son to them. After that, the rumor mill died down and eventually stopped after the mess where sister-in-law and her baby daddy nearly broke up and she changed her child's name. We were paid a visit by the cousin. She demanded we pay the money owed to sister-in-law for the name change, and when we refused, she screamed at us that we ruined sister-in-law's relationship and now her child's new name will always be a reminder of what we did. I simply told her to leave as we didn't start this mess and we didn't even try to end it. We just wanted no part of it. Sister-in-law's cousin flipped me the bird with both hands and said she wished she could do it with her toes too, then left before she got in her car. I said that if she ever tried to come back, I'd call the police and file for a restraining order, and that's pretty much it. As we were and still are, completely no contact with mother-in-law and sister-in-law and the cousin too. And that's the end of this story. What do you guys think about this whole mess of the story? Do you have anything to say to the poster? Let me know in the comments section below, and I will see you guys on the next video.